I think the biggest problem that I've seen with founders is they fall madly in love with the solution before they understand the problem. I've been working as a fractional CPO, which essentially means that I'm parachuted into companies that aren't performing great. I do an audit, I understand what's working, what isn't working, and then get to work. Because the number of times that I've gotten products out of saying, well, why is that person there buying that? Or why are 10 people over there buying that? And then interviewing them and you go, wow, they've discovered a whole new use case for a product. And then suddenly that becomes 30% of the revenue.
Welcome to the DevReady Podcast. Joining me on the DevReady Podcast today, I have Karina Carter. Karina, thanks for making time to join me on the episode today.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on, and I'll let you do an introduction of yourself and a bit of background because there's no way I could ever do that justice without knowing you, considering I just met you. And that's how I run this here for those that are new to the episode.
Amazing. That sounds good. I've been in product for 12 years. It's something that I fell into and loved from the very beginning. I came at it from the UN and government departments, so I just loved that you could get to work and ship something really quickly and talk to customers actually, rather than have a data set from Kyrgyzstan's UNICEF department, and then just look at it at a population size. So that was really exciting for me. And then I run a venture studio in China. We built really cool things for both sides of the Great Firewall. I'm sure many developers will be aware of that. And then went in-house for a while, for 5 years in London. And since 2.5 years ago, I've been working as a fractional CPO, which essentially means that I'm parachuted into companies that aren't performing great. I do an audit, I understand what's working, what isn't working, and then get to work making sure that everyone's aligned, the processes are there to support, and then everyone is coached to be their best self.
That's an interesting transition you've made from government where, was it product aligned in the government as well, in the UN you mentioned?
No, I was a research analyst.
Okay. What pushed you towards then product? Because that seems like it's a bit of a jump.
Well, yeah, you'd think so, but actually there's a lot of supportive elements. So think of the UNICEF Kyrgyzstan work that I did as essentially sitting in a windowless basement with other data analysts and doing a lot of regression analysis on countrywide data sets, and then sort of shooting it into the black hole that is the analytical department, and then hoping for the best. And it's slow, nothing is really moving, it's academic. It was very much part of my master's degree as well, and so it didn't really have that push for action. And then this is what led me to essentially start my own tech company in China. So I moved back to China, started that company. But that data love, that the first thing I do when I join a customer now is I say, let me into your data set. I want to go and play. And then I just see what's working, what isn't working. And there's so much. One thing that's really surprised me is that every single company I've worked with sits on a ton of data they haven't actioned.
Yep, and that makes sense because a lot of people, they don't even consider it data, just consider it things as part of doing the job. It's not something that they could understand how to extract information out of, that's the key part is, with your background, I can understand how you're very technical in that level, so you can understand how to put that together and put together a story to present back to the founders or owners that you're dealing with.
100%. Yeah, that quant side of things, my God, there's so much to explore there. Essentially outliers as well, because the number of times that I've gotten products out of saying, well, why is that person there buying that? Or why are 10 people over there buying that? And then interviewing them and you go, wow, they've discovered a whole new use case for a product. And then suddenly that becomes 30% of the revenue. So it's a really, it's a very important thing to do.
And that's critical because then that'll inform your marketing, your new personas, your strategy, and your directing, as well as potential features that you're adding or a offshoot or another version of a product, potentially, depending on how you want to pitch it. Just touching on the part of your career in China, was that a bit challenging working in that space? You mentioned on both sides, so you're shipping products out of China to the rest of the world and then either Chinese-made products for the Chinese market or going into China.
So they were, I did have some physical products too, but predominantly they were tech products. So the Great Firewall essentially makes any Google product, Facebook, Instagram, but also Shopify and all these other solutions essentially illegal to open and run without a VPN. So if you wanted to sell your tech products to Chinese customers and overseas, they need to be built from scratch. So that was the sort of the problem space that we were in. Now, luckily, we identified that problem space really quickly. And so we were essentially the people that covered and solved for that. And we were in a remarkable position where people were lining up to work with us, and we were happy to wait 6 months to have their solutions because we solved for their specific pain. So yeah, that's never happened before. I've peaked early, and then now it's a hassle.
You're just chasing that.
Chasing that high.
I know it is difficult to then potentially work in with China because their culture is not something that everyone else is exposed to in the rest of the world. We're very westernized and they've got their own way and history of doing things. Plus, it's a very different government and the way that things are operated.
Yes, it's look, it was lots of fun. I don't know if I could do that right now because we worked with Chinese clients. We also worked with a lot of internationals who were based in China. I studied Chinese, so personally, I'm a Sinophile through and through. So for me, I was curious about things and everything was exciting. And but yeah, it is, I think, extra labor on top of running a company already for sure, starting a company in China. Yeah. And if you don't love it, it's I don't advise it.
I can imagine, it's got its own extra challenges that it brings on board and the overhead, which may or may not be worth it. The market size dictates that it's worth it, but you still have to break through and still have to have the right product to hit the right people.
100%, yeah.
So then how, going in as the fractional CPO and now looking at data, what's sort of the approach that you take? Is it just open up the fire hose and let me just start modeling everything myself, or how do you approach it?
Look, that depends on the problem space. So usually usually I come in through a recommendation. So someone's spoken to other CEOs or founders, they've described their problems and they go, well, I've got the person for you. So I think I do now have this reputation of someone who essentially comes in and realigns the company and makes it innovative again, and usually with a smaller team. So we don't actually very often need as big a team as you have initially. And that's the thinking very often, is that you need more people to create better products. That's not true at all. You need better people better equipped at innovating, at making the right decisions in the moment, and shipping small deliverables. And people with a growth mindset as well. So that's probably, if I were to say, out of every single thing that I've learned over the last 2.5 years working with all these companies as a fractional CPO, the core determinant of success of a company or a person on an individual level, growth mindset for sure. Yep. And within that, I would also say radical responsibility. So this is my problem to solve. I own it. If things go wrong, it's just another problem for me to solve, rather than this is my problem to solve, but all of these forces are against me and I don't and the market is in the back, that kind of victim mindset kills everything. Yeah. Whereas someone with a growth mindset and a radical responsibility will go, this is my problem to solve. And the market is not in a great place. Okay, so what does that open up? What are the opportunities they're in? I can't expect the market to be in a fantastic place for my things to work. Yeah. Like all these, let's remove all this conditionality. What are you left with then? So to answer your question, sometimes I come in and there's no data person, then I have to sort of do a sweep. But data hires are some of the first ones that I do. Other times there's a data team that I work with to essentially go, what are you sitting on? Like, what can we do? Can you export all of it? Where can I play with that? Do you have Looker or something else? And then we get to work as well. So they're usually my favorite people to sort of,
Yeah, they're most aligned to your probably the part you're most passionate about.
Well, no, look, I think I'm most passionate about customer centricity.
Okay.
But data gives us the what, right? So the reason that I go to data first is I go, what is happening? And then as soon as I understand what is happening, my next question is, why is that happening? Yep. So why do we have, 20 people in the UK buying pollution masks? This is an actual example from a customer from years ago. And then you speak to them and you realize that they're buying it because they're going through cancer treatment. And then you realize that actually there's a whole use case of people who are undergoing certain treatments where a pollution mask is the perfect solution. I would never have been able to get there with data alone. So what is there? But then that leads to the why, and the why is the customer centricity.
Yeah, getting their feedback, understanding their needs, their requirements, what they like, what they don't like. Because a lot of people, when they think just product, it's more just feature set. They don't think about how that actually solves and ties into like the marketing and how you promote that to people. Because majority of people don't buy off spec. Marketing is not sold on spec. It's sold on value and what you're going to get out of it, or what you'll do. You get the very, very technical people which look at specs and then they care, but that's not how you drive product.
No, not at all. And customer understanding is, again, I think a lot of people, when I come in and I say, we're going to interview some customers, the first cartoon-esque image that appears in their head is me with a microphone going up to users and being like, oh, sir, what do you think we should build? Which is of course the opposite of it. They have zero understanding of what's now possible in tech for them to be able to solutionize. They may not know what good looks like. They may not. So it's obviously we're not asking them what to build. What we're doing is we're saying, when you go to bed, what runs through your head? As a business owner, so I work with a lot of B2B customers. As a business owner, what is the thing that just, the last week, just tell me, what have you thought about right before you fell asleep? And then they go, well, I don't know about my cash flow and whether or not I should be, doing X, Y, and Z. So in my head, I'm thinking, scenario planning could be interesting, or, budget controls, or reminders, or la la la. So I solutionize in my head and then bring that to engineers and product designers so we can solutionize together. But the thing that I understand is, what problem are we solving for these customers?
Yeah, and I think that's key, is going out there and it's asking the right questions to the customers. Because you can ask a question and lead them a certain way, which makes you happy or satisfied that you're doing the right thing. But you haven't actually dived into what the problems are, or you're trying to, without realizing you're avoiding things.
Yes. Actually, so most companies, it's not like they avoid doing research altogether, is that they do it, but they may as well not do it.
It doesn't provide anything meaningful back.
No, not at all. Because look, people are lovely. Humans are lovely. So if I show you something that I clearly made, because I'm the product designer and there's a design in front of you, and I haven't said, hey, by the way, this is another designer, this has nothing to do with me, so rip it apart. I actually would prefer to know what bugs you about it. But if I show this to you and say, do you think this is great? You as the human will, of course, will say, of course it's great, it's beautiful, I love it, it's so clear, la la la. And so the number of times that I've come in and I watched recorded videos, and that's exactly what's happening. So it's a sort of confirmation bias. The research plan wasn't set, so customers are being asked different questions. That's it. You've already failed there.
Yep.
Because essentially what you're doing, you have a population of all of your customers and you're picking a representative sample of them. And you're essentially saying, if the theme that I see across these 5 to 7 customers is there, then that I can sort of reasonably expect that will apply to the rest of the population, right? That's what you're doing, because you don't have time to go and speak to every single person. It's like a vaccine, you take it out, you test on these people, it works, then you suppose that it's going to work on the rest. And so so you have to ask the same questions, otherwise you're never going to get to a theme. You have to ask questions in the right way. What absolutely baffled me, actually, is I've been interviewing for product designers for a while. Now, I've interviewed thousands of product designers, managers, and engineers in my career, especially as a fractional CPO. And when I ask product designers what biases come into the interview process, none of them can go beyond not leading asking questions.
Okay.
That baffles, because what about recency bias? What about confirmation bias? What about selection bias? What about, I don't know, there are 20 that you should know when creating these protocols for interviews. And then so how to interview, if you're going to interview, you can do a course of 2 hours on YouTube and then your productivity will shoot up. Or your likelihood of solving the right problems will shoot up.
You start seeing those themes, start being able to extrapolate the right points. Because you can, if you're asking different questions, you can extrapolate 20 different points. And you're not going to be any better off than where you are. Take the product in 10 different directions.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Because again, I come in and they go, look, no one is buying this. It's really weird because we actually did a whole research study. I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the research study. And of course, it's very confirmation bias sort of contextualized, because they're essentially saying, what do you think about this? And everyone is going, this is amazing on the call. But because they're not the right questions, then they release and no one buys it. So again, just doing it, not the right thing. Sorry, I get really passionate about this because...
No, it's good. It's good. It comes through. It shows that you thoroughly understand the approach and not just looking at ask a question and get an answer. There's a whole methodology behind it and how you approach it to try and get the right answers, not just any answer, to try and satisfy whoever you're working with.
Yeah. Oh, Anthony, I feel seen.
Thanks. It's not a problem. I think the other aspect of this probably is then feedback like you get from users, because a lot of people just assume any type of feedback they get is something they should implement. But generally, there's the what is it? The quiet majority and the silent. Oh no, the silent majority and the loud minority. So the ones that give you feedback are the ones that are either really upset about something, and they're the ones that are just have a more tendency to complain about things, and they'll go in, and they're the ones you see that leave bad reviews about places.
Yes.
The really happy people generally don't leave positive reviews. You never hear when you're doing a good job. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, because again, that could be a segment of your customer base where the market there's an addressable market that is tiny,
Oh,
or
yeah.
you're not intending to go that direction, and then they'll just drag you into the wrong spot, and that could be why no one's buying. I think my favorite thing that I've seen over my time in IT and growing up was when Office, if anyone remembers this, is going back 20 years ago, from Office 2003 had your normal menus. They introduced the ribbon bar, I think it was in 2005. And the reason they did that was because people were asking for features that were already in the Office, but people didn't know about it.
Oh, no.
So they couldn't find them in the menus of Word because they had to dig down to 10 different places. They brought this menu bar, and then everyone complained about this new design that wrecked everything, but surfaced everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an interesting one where it's you're listening to the feedback and you're making a change. That change is going to be disruptive, but now it's been 20 years with that UI, and no one can picture using anything else.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and a couple of points there. So I think another thing that you're making me think about is that when they're shouting really loudly, they could also not be your ICP. So that could be your signal that actually you're filtering out the right customers, or a signal that you're taking on board the wrong customers, and then they're shouting really loudly, including on review websites. So actually, your problem that you're solving in this would probably be how to gate, the non-ICPs from coming in rather than solving their problem. So there's a lot that you need to do. Actually, I think products, very often people want to jump straight in and go, okay, let's do discovery, speak to customers and, look at the data. And the first thing that I do usually is I create a vision statement if that doesn't exist in a strategy, and then OKRs based on that strategy. And only then can we get to work. Because if you look at RISE, reach, sure, impact on what? If we don't have OKRs, impact on retention will be very different from impact on activation. So you really need to be very specific. So that background information definitely needs to be there before you get to work.
It's all about making informed decisions for the direction that you want to take the product. But then sometimes you will have to pivot based on feedback. Like you may think you know what people want, and you don't because you haven't spoken to them, or you've misinterpreted the information, as you said earlier. But there, where you mentioned a lot of people dive in too early, that's the whole reason we have DevReady. We help people get DevReady. So we plan a product before you build it, so you know what you're trying to achieve. A lot of people just jump into development too quickly. And I've said this story 100 times probably on this podcast now. That's the reason we started the podcast is people came to us in the span of a week, 5 different businesses, and they had all started building without knowing what they were building or who they were getting the software developed by, and they ended up having no software worth showing or working properly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you've hit on something really important. One of the things that I coach all product managers, designers, engineers, and the wider stakeholder teams is that we have to think of everything as a hypothesis. Everything is a hypothesis until we've launched V4 And we clearly have like data, objective data telling us that this is the solution that solved the problem that we've initially set out to solve. And what's really wonderful about this discipline and the fact, the reason that I'm 12 years in and I'm still not bored for a single second of the day is because this is the most humbling discipline of all, because sometimes I look at hypothesis and I'm like, this is a winner. Like, we're going to launch this and things are going to like explode in revenue and profit. And then we'll launch it and just crickets. No one understands it. No one wants it. And, other times an engineer in a meeting goes, well, why don't we do it like this? And everyone's like, okay, well, let's test that. We don't really think about it. And then that becomes the feature that unlocks this entire new market. So the thinking about it in hypothesis, a lot of people say, well, I have a really great gut feel. And I think intuition is very important, 100%. But you need to fight it a little bit and still think every day, still think of everything you do as a hypothesis. And that building, once you commit to building is a privilege that you need to earn through all of this work that you do ahead of time. And only when you have this critical mass of information that you should be building, we can go to V0.
I think there's a lot of people that have never been in the space before or never attempted to build software before, don't know that they need to do all that groundwork before, and they just jump into building. Has that been your experience, probably more so on the startup side than like with established teams?
Yeah. I think the biggest problem that I've seen with founders is they fall madly in love with the solution before they understand the problem. So maybe they have that problem themselves. So they have obviously a little bit of understanding that the problem exists, but they haven't discovered it in full. But then they fall so madly in love with the solution and then build it and then realize that either no one else has it or the way that they've built it isn't right or they've overcomplicated it. There's a lot of that. So I think you also have to fight your ego quite a lot and just go, okay, cool, I think I understand it, but let me just check. Let me just talk to 5 people. That's not a lot of time. It's 2.5 hours.
I think that's a problem more for people like myself who are developers and can actually do the things themselves, so they get an idea and start.
Oh, 100%. And look, I lived in Bali for a while, and there is a group there of founders, and most of them are developers. And every time I saw them meet, they essentially were working on a different idea. And because they're all engineers, like, I have an idea, and then they immediately have solutionized it in their head, and they've already built it before any thought occurs of who's this for? How are you going to monetize it? Who's going to pay for this?
It's a problem, especially if you're trying to turn it into a business. So I've built tools for our business to make our business run better. And then we see if there's an opportunity to commercialize and broaden the market. Because then, all right, we're a representative sample of one that has a problem. You can extrapolate that the rest of the market has similar problems as well. So you can then try and look to that. But again, do the research, get the data, and put that in practice.
Yeah. And that's, this is where, when you talk about user research, I always say, please, please, please look at how you recruit your candidates, because maybe you have found the 5 people in the world that care about it. So they're not a representative sample of your population, but somehow you've recruited with a bias built into it. And now, that's your...
Yeah, they're your champions. Or if you go and look at your logs and go, all right, who uses it the most? Let's go and talk to them. You've already got a bias in there.
Yes. Yeah. And one thing that I think you cannot really improve is I love visiting customers in person. And I love just sitting behind them creepily and like watching them use the platform. And I know like I introduce a certain type of bias when I do that as well. But I think it's beautiful to just watch them and then talk to them and understand them, really get into their minds as people. Like, what do you care about? What kind of person are you? I'm meeting with a lot of credit controllers at the moment for a company that, for one of my clients. And they're just a person I don't know. I don't know that as a person. Yep. I don't have friends who are credit controllers. They are like, it's almost like getting to know, this whole group of people. It's like, it's anthropology.
Yeah. It's a new area, new understanding, new way of thinking, the way they operate and how they do things. I definitely think, seeing people do the job or the work in person is definitely better than when you watch like one of those screen recordings with the heat maps. Yeah. I've watched some of them before on our website and like, why the hell is this person scrolling the way they're scrolling? Yeah. You don't know what they're doing in the real world. You're just seeing the cursor going crazy on the screen and it doesn't make any sense because you don't have the context around the situation it was in.
100%. Again, it gives you the what, not the why. Yeah.
And that's a problem. It's like you said, I think you said before, it's just understanding the data and saying, this is what happened. why did it happen, and trying to actually find the real cause, not just assuming.
Yes, 100%.
Have you seen now in the last couple of years with, say, the ChatGPT wave and the AI and now vibe coding tools that have come out this year, that they're starting to impact the way people are jumping quickly into development? Or has any of that come into what you've seen in the past 6 months?
Look, I work with scale-ups. But I very much encourage that. So, for product managers, when, I don't know, let's say the product designer is on holidays for a week and they're like, I just would love to imagine what it looks like because I'm visual. I'm like, well, lovable, jump in, have a play. Let's see. I honestly think it's amazing that we have all these tools available to us. Do I think that the market is suddenly going to be flooded with phenomenal products? No, I think it's just going to be quite busy and noisy for a while. But I do think that they have phenomenal potential for the future. Yeah,
it's definitely a market that's growing. The way I see it is a lot of startups that jump into it. It's without knowing how to build the right product, they're just building the wrong product faster.
Yeah.
And then you can iterate the wrong thing multiple times now.
Yeah.
As well. So it's something to be cautious of if you're listening, that you need to put in the hard work before to get the privilege to be able to build the right thing. And hopefully you want to do it once and you don't have to do it again. That's what you want to aim to get towards, and then or start getting feedback at least.
Yes. And I feel like, I don't know if you get this, but a product designer, when something looks really simple, that a product designer has sweated over the design for many moons. Because if it just works and it just kind of sits perfectly, the simpler it looks, the longer someone spends on it. And I feel like the longer you work on something as a person, the cleaner, clearer, and more aligned it becomes, and the better you can communicate it to someone. I feel like the more you work on something with a tool like ChatGPT or Lovable or any kind of AI-based tools, it gets messier, dirtier, more confused, So I think maybe if this problem can be solved, that would be fantastic. But I honestly think that at some point we will have some sort of label being like human designed or human built, and
it's going to be a human, like all craft.
Yes.
Yeah, handcrafted.
Exactly. Handcrafted, and we've always loved that, right? You'll still buy a beautiful leather bag that's been hand stitched for more money than you would, something that was obviously machine made. And so I feel that will apply to AI.
Yeah, the handcrafted app.
Yeah. My brain.
A new tag. So what's some of the things that you're seeing coming into the market, or the way that probably the markets are shifting now that there's a lot new, probably not new, I'll say there's alternate ways to now sort of like analyze that data, where you don't necessarily have to have the experience that you have and gone through the journeys you've gone through to build that background?
Very, very good question. Thank you for that. And actually this week I'm dealing with massive hallucinations on ChatGPT side. So I have ChatGPT Pro, and I'm writing this big strategy paper for a client, and I'm writing it. And yesterday I just had this gut feel. I was like, I'm just going to go check the data. And I checked it again, and then checked the numbers that ChatGPT gave me. And I was like, where did you get this massive number from? And it was like, well, it's just
pretty much the response.
I need a prompt here. So I was like, okay, act as a data analyst and check the work of this person and find me this 200K that you've aligned. And it was like, well, I couldn't find anything. And then I was like, okay, so hey, first person, first bot, like, how am I, where did you get that from? And they're like, well, it just seemed like a reasonable number to assume. So I'm like,
fantastic. You still have to monitor every step of the way, because it'll just keep deviating you further and further from the path. And then now I think with ChatGPT 5, it starts asking you follow-up questions. Like, would you like me to look into this? And if you start going down that, it'll just move you faster away from the path you're going potentially.
Yes, 100%. And I think those questions, if I were the product person for that research grade side of ChatGPT, I would say, people probably want to feel a little bit in control. So let's ask them some obvious questions that, they feel like we've got it, because they're not actually that helpful if you really look at them and think about them. And I always think of the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? So it's almost a little bit of a peripheral side of Dunning-Kruger, where if you don't really look at things, if you sort of just look at it as a whole, it appears really simple. Yep. But the more you start digging into it, the more you understand what complexity sits behind it. So again, not the actual effect, but I kind of see it as peripheral.
I think that's where you think like you're an expert in something where you're not
Yeah,
technically not.
yeah.
I think
Like
I think one of the
designer,
studies I heard was, do you know how a toilet works? And everyone says yes. Press the button and it flushes. All right, now explain how it works, and no one can actually explain how it actually works.
Oh, 100%. What was it that they said? If 99.9999% of the population, if any of us were to be exported back to the Stone Age, none of us would be able to innovate back here or create the light bulb or none of it.
Couldn't
So
even set up a farm.
yeah, starting fire.
Terrible, yeah. That's a thing. That's one of those biases where you think you know something,
Exactly.
and then you're not looking at what data supports it, or
Yes.
you just like, oh, generally in the past, I've made these gut decisions, they've been okay, so I'll just keep going down that path.
So to answer your question is in the ways of working that I always introduce into every single company, I say, please, never go to ChatGPT first. Like write it all out, think, because critical thinking is a muscle.
Yep.
And if that atrophies for a product designer, a product manager, or an engineer, I mean, what else have you got left? So I always say, write it all out first, really think. And I do have a preference for written communication. I think there's a lot of stuff that comes up as porous or not grounded enough as you start to write. And so, yes, use it to then check your thinking or check your math, but double check it yourself then after. But please think yourself first. And even with some things that help you analyze data. So product board, what if all of those things were to come in and AI would just analyze them? Well, I would prefer that each one of my product managers sits every morning at the computer and spends 10 to 15 minutes assigning the notes to the right features, because then that gives them a finger on the pulse rather than the AI that just does it all. Because I think when AI does it, you look at it and, it's all nice and eloquent and, nicely written. So you look at it, you're like, this is great. This surely is fine. But you lose touch with what's actually under the hood.
You're not thinking, the critical thinking disappears, you start losing context, but then that gut feel that you make is based on all these little signals that you haven't consciously taken in, but you may have read 13 different feedback items from people and one word was consistent in all of them, and then all right, this is where we have to go because there's no way to link them together, but the AI won't see that. So it's really important you do that. I think that's the problem with AI tools is you are a reviewer, but you're also the person who should maybe start the draft or give the first initial information or an overview. Put your opinion in and then get what you need.
Yes.
I don't personally use any of the AI tools to do sort of truth-based reporting.
Yeah.
It's a report, like go and do a research report for me. So deep research is my favorite tool. It saves me hours of Googling because that's what I used to do. So you go and Google and give me back a report, and now it saves me 4 hours of going to cursory look at a thing. I roughly know what I want I know, so then I can verify that. But then everything else I do with it is creative. So I'm happy to have hallucinations because I want it to give me other ideas or things I haven't thought of. Not, this is a research paper that needs to be 100% truthful and accurate.
Yeah. And actually, one thing that's remarkable with AI is my favorite thing to do when I do competitor analysis of a potential client or an actual client is I go and read literally every single thing that's been written about this company and its competitors. And here's a list of competitors on public forums, on reviews, on and create me like a thematic analysis of each one and then put it on a X and Y axis, right? So we can have a look like where we're positioned in the minds of the customer. Imagine the number of years it would take one to do that with, companies with thousands and thousands of reviews.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it's like there's so many use cases where it's perfect, but I would say if it requires critical thinking, please do that first.
Yeah, of course. And that's the best skill you can have with anything is keep that. And as you said, it's a muscle. The more you use it, the better you will get. You'll be able to make better informed decisions.
100%. Yeah.
Well, Karina, it's been a pleasure having you on the episode today. Thank you so much for your time. If anyone wants to find out more about yourself, how can they do that?
LinkedIn is best. Everything is on there right now. I work with word of mouth, but I am putting something together soon to, to have it all on a website. So.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll add that to the show notes. Once again, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to have you on the DevReady podcast.
You too. Thank you so much. This has been a great chat.
Thank you.
Thanks.